Hello Gearspace, it's Dave from Bitwig here at Superbooth. We just announced version 4.3, which is in beta now. We've got some space things, some tone things, a new convolution, a new delay, and for tone, a bundle of various analog-y sounding components for our instruments and for our grid environment. So we could take a look real quick. So I've got a session going here. Oh, and now you can have comments on just about anything, whether it's lyrics or whatever else. So, let's see. Let's grab the guitar for a moment, maybe. You can just focus on the guitar parts that we're hearing. So one thing we just added is a new convolution device. That convolution is good for reverb. It's good for putting any tone onto your sound. So if this is here to begin with, it's Bitwig. Oh, yes, this is a touchscreen. Hello. So we do have a visual browser for trying to find from, this is just factory content that is included. So you can kind of get a sense and see what's happening already, whether it's something small and simple, or I see a church over here. That should have a sound. It's kind of familiar. Gain it up. Thing with impulses, they all have very different gains, they all have very different tones, so a one knob tilt EQ for darker, brighter. And then what's interesting here, we have a whole synthetic category, so there's also a bunch of other generated ideas, some of which are long and reverb-ish, some of which are short and just kind of contain a tone, or, this looks interesting. So let's switch over and see what. So, that's the friendly reminder that convolution runs every sample through every part of this impulse, so 6 seconds for anything that passes through. One nice thing about the interface is that it's really made like a sampler. So if I'm just trying to grab start and end points, and then even put a little bit of volume curve on top of it to give it a bit of an envelope, whether it's decaying or if you live in a strange place, increasing, or whatever. It's all just fast and pretty fluent for whatever you're dealing with. And in addition to more than 250 impulses that are in here, you could also drop any audio onto it, and we'll make sense of it as some kind of convolution, or to use it for convolution. So, maybe something percussion wouldn't. Why not? That's fun. So I'm just going to drop that straight into the convolution device. It'll get analyzed, and it's just that little chimey bell. That's. I had my start and end. Let's see what happens. Even put something on just the wet effect, like maybe kind of smearing the phase of it a little bit, and just give it a little bit of motion. So this could imagine anything. I mean, if I want to drop it an octave, that's going to have an obvious effect. So it's kind of like taking any sound possible and imprinting it on what's there, trying to keep it simple. It feels like a sampler, but it sounds pretty good and pretty interesting. So that's a little bit with convolution. We also had a mandolin over here. So another part of this space story is a new Delay Plus device. We've been doing a lot of Plus devices, which is just the idea that they have more characters built into them, a lot of range. So in this case, Delay Plus, let me open our help view for a second. Oh, I think I pressed the wrong key. So the documentation, as always, is inside. Just to give you a sense of what's here. And the good thing is, I can just start with a simple delay. 3/16 notes, turn up the feedback a little bit. Okay. Simple stereo delay. But then all the options where I might want to go are here. I could switch to a mono mode and just kind of push the feedback with a panning and make it directional as I'm working with it. Could go from a ping pong left to right mode or a ping pong right to left mode. There's a whole lot here. Even with the simple stereo mode, a hidden little option here, although it's in the inspector, to say, well, how about you cross feedback? Feedback the left channel to the right and the right channel to the left, so now that's kind of fishtailing back and forth all the time. And especially with an idea like, I like my time, just let me nudge it by a few milliseconds. And then you'd kind of expect this on an oscillator, but why not a delay? So make the right channel up and the left channel negative. So now they're kind of instant stereo because it's pushing them in opposite directions. So there's a lot of range here before we even start talking about the feedback loop. So I'm pushing pretty hard. This is turning red because level control is being hit. We're hitting the threshold where we need to start reducing the gain. Whether I want it to be soft clipping or hard clipping or kind of a compressor type behavior, this will add a lot more dirt there. There's a lot baked into the feedback chain already, including, so let's just freeze that delay for a moment. Nothing new is coming in or out of the feedback, it's just unity gain. And now I have one knob called blur. And 5 different ways of thinking about it. Well, maybe I just want to smear the phases a little bit. And just kind of soften the sound a little. Or maybe I want to do something big and modulated where, as I turn this, it starts to feel a little bit like a reverb. And then come back. And even a little ducking option. To just say, well, how about when loud signal comes in, just pull down the wet gain, pull down the feedback, get out of the way so I can hear the new signal, but the feedback's still there in the background. So just an overall suite where there's a lot that's possible in here, and it's probably a good place to start for any basic delay task. And that's before you insert a plugin or VST device that you like. Let's go with pitch shifter into the feedback loop, because we let you do that in Bitwig. Any VST or device could end up in the feedback loop. So depending on how strange or otherworldly you want your own clipping algorithm, just put it in the feedback loop. You want your own VST, that's where the interesting things end up happening. And you have access in Bitwig, which is nice. So that is this portion. We've got delay plus, we've got convolution. We're also talking about tone in this release, so this analog inspired type idea. So I have, this is fine. We have our Polymer device, which is a synthesizer using our grid modules. So basically, pick an oscillator from several choices, pick a filter from several choices, pick an envelope generator from several choices, and the basics of a synthesizer are here, which is all just borrowed from our grid technology, but putting it on the top level so you don't have to go into patch chord land when you don't want to. So if we start from Polymer, this oscillator up front, this union oscillator, is new. And it's interesting because when the levels, let me open the filter a little bit. When the levels change here, there's a little bit of a DC action going on, kind of the way analog systems would. So let me insert a modulator just to make it move without me having to grab the knob over and over again. So as these slide around a little bit, you end up, you just hear more because it's kind of going between domains and sliding the signal up and down, and it has a little bit of a responsive feel. Low-pass MG Yes, I'll say it, MG Moog. Robert Moog. He was a pretty good guy. He did a lot of interesting things. We are still being inspired. So, yes, this is trying to be a bit of the style of low-pass filter that he made and worked on for so long, that he made interesting. But additionally, the drive control here saturates in a way that's a little bit similar to the mix bus that he had on his instruments also. So there's different parts where there's discontinuities and nonlinear response, and it just makes for a more immediate, interesting sound, even with a few sensible controls. And even the amplitude envelope is in this new analog mode, which has some of the nonlinear things that you'd find in Moog type situations. So there's kind of a lot going on here. And again, you can switch things around. We took one of our modules that used to have 3 low-pass modes, and now it has, 16? That's a lot of modes. A lot of different modes in there. And additionally, all the other choices that were there to begin with. So if we take this actually might be a decent place to end, because one other little thing that we added was that our send tracks now have send of their own. So I do have this Polymer here. He's going over to a bit of a distortion that has some of our modeled flanger in there. So as this gets turned up a little bit, the distortion is sending over to a reverb, but what if the reverb was also sending back to the distortion a little bit? So there's a lot of fun things possible all around. But that's our new 4.3 update. It's in beta right now, so people own Bitwig, you can download it and try it, and we'll get it released as soon as we can. Thanks for coming by, Gearspace.